Jorge. Good morning, Ms. Lopez. Can you please start us off with the roll call?
Good morning, Commissioners. District 1, Commissioner Shernock. District 2, Commissioner Hampton. District 3, Commissioner Herbert.
Here, online.
District 4, Commissioner Forsyth.
Here.
District 5, Chair Shadid.
Present.
District 6, Commissioner Carpenter.
Present.
District 7, Commissioner Wheeler-Reagan.
She's in the garage.
District 8, Commissioner Franklin.
Present.
District 9, Commissioner Sleeper. District 10, Commissioner Housewright.
Here.
District 11, Commissioner Nightingale.
Here.
District 12, Commissioner Hawk. District 13, Commissioner Hall.
Here.
District 14, Commissioner Kingston. And place 15, Vice Chair Rubin.
I'm here.
You have quorum, sir.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Commissioners. Today is Thursday, January 23rd. It is 9:09 a.m. Welcome to the briefing of the Dallas City Planning Commission. Commissioners, we do have a full docket. Let's try to keep a brisk pace today, especially this afternoon. We're going to go ahead and get started with the very first briefing item, which is an overview of the South Dallas Fair Park Area Plan. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the Commission. My name is Patrick Blades, Chief Planner with Neighborhood and Community Planning. I'm happy to present an overview of the South Dallas Fair Park Area Plan. This is just an overview and a briefing on the plan and the process. We're always open to feedback. However, we are going to come back to you. You're going to have a copy of the plan. You're going to have ample time to review the plan. There will be a public hearing in front of CPC. So this is an overview on the process and the big recommendations or the big picture recommendations from it. I'm going to begin the presentation with reminding everyone on the Commission that this is the South Dallas area. It's not Southern Dallas. And so when we're asking questions about this is not Southern Dallas, this is the South Dallas area. So the same way that you would reference West Dallas or East Dallas, that's the way that we would reference this area. I would also frame the conversation, and many of you commissioners are aware, the South Dallas community has gone through considerable community trauma. There is a lot of historic inequities in South Dallas. And so as we're having that conversation, just want to be mindful of those historic inequities here in South Dallas. With that, I'm happy to hand the presentation off to my colleague, Ms. Lindsay Jackson.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. My name is Lindsay Jackson, Senior Planner. I'm excited to be present today. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Just going to do a high-level overview of the background and the history of South Dallas, the area plan and the engagement, and then I'll hand it back to Patrick so he can review the land use recommendations. I know you all are eager to hear, and we'll talk about some implementation that is going on in real time, next steps, and a brief Q&A. So as Patrick mentioned, this is South Dallas, and just to orient you all, the star is where South Dallas is located, very adjacent, right adjacent to the Fair Park. So there's been a lot of plans over the years within South Dallas, one being the Economic Development Corridor Plan back in 2001. We've had the DART Station and the Hatcher Station Plan. And most recently, not a City of Dallas plan, but the Fair Park Master Plan in 2020. And so there's all this planning that's been going on, and there has been a lack of implementation. And so in 2020, Councilmember Bazadua initiated a 5-signature memo for the area plan and the authorized hearing process. And so, of course, in 2020, the pandemic occurred, and things got a little bit thrown off. And so during that time, they were able to kind of regroup a little bit later, and Councilmember Bazadua put together the task force. And so just want to highlight that these are community members and stakeholders that have a vested interest in South Dallas. Just to kind of highlight a few people, Scotty Smith is our chairperson. He is a real estate broker and developer. Commissioner Wheeler, at that time, she was our co-chairperson. Now she is the representative for District 7. And just various different groups from TREC representatives to Fraser Revitalization, neighborhood associations like Queen City, Brian Llewellyn with Fair Park First. So there is just a multitude of different people that represent South Dallas, from faith-based organizations. I'll go ahead.
Yeah, and I just wanted to highlight here, when you see the recommendations and when you see the plan, this is not something that staff just sat down and said, these are our ideas. These are all things that came from these community members in South Dallas. They were all recommendations that they said, these are the things that we want to do. Because for a number of years, you know, there have been a lot of people that show up in South Dallas and say, we're here to help. Here are some great ideas that we think can change South Dallas. Staff's approach in this area plan was not to do that, was to, I mean, Ms. Jackson and I, you know, we've been there for 3 years. This is not us parachuting in and saying these are some great ideas to help South Dallas. This is us standing in that room or sitting in that room, listening to what those community members said they wanted, and then figuring out ways to achieve those things. And sometimes it's a little bit of difference. You know, we're not there to help. We're there to basically stand there or sit there. And when someone says, you know, as the community members and these members on our task force are talking about the ideas and things they want to do, they would then turn and say, okay, Ms. Jackson, did you get that? Mr. Blades, did you get that? And we say, yes, we did. We're here to help you achieve that. It's not us coming in with these ideas. These are all coming from the community. So as you were reviewing the plan, just want everybody on the commission to be mindful of how you can do that same process, that you are there to help facilitate and assist the community, as opposed to bringing in, you know, ideas to say, these are my great ideas of how I can help South Dallas or how I can better South Dallas. So, yeah.
Thank you for that, Patrick. So the stakeholders, the task force, they came up with guiding principles. And so it was critical that they wanted to focus on land use in the context of addressing some challenges within Plan Development 595, and just looking at future land use to determine how do we want the community to look in the future, what uses are missing, what is necessary to get small local businesses back into South Dallas. They're looking at housing, economic development, infrastructure or the lack of infrastructure that's needed to spur more development in South Dallas, and protecting the history and culture of South Dallas, and just overall community well-being with looking at homelessness and trying to tackle some of those issues. So we did a lot of public engagement. Fortunately, during this process, we were also working towards Forward Dallas. And so everything that you see here is in alignment with our citywide approved Forward Dallas plan. We went to numerous neighborhood association meetings, different stakeholders throughout South Dallas, and we had a really good time just getting feedback from all of these different community members. Here's a brief highlight of just some of the meetings we did, different presentations, pop-ups. We've had tours in South Dallas with our housing department and other departments, and I'll cover a little bit more of that later. But also just doing education workshops so that our residents are aware of you know, how to form a neighborhood association, what is land use and zoning. So all of this was critical to gathering information for this plan. And this is just to kind of show all the different stakeholders and involvement that we've done over the last 3 years. Also, we want to highlight that since this is an implementation plan, we have looked at our different interdepartmental plans, from infrastructure management to the Dallas housing policy, previous budgets, as well as economic development and racial equity plans. So when you see these recommendations, just know that this was drawn from existing plans so that all departments are somewhat in alignment with what we are proposing to do. Here are the 5 focus areas. The task force, we had to explain to them, hey, we can't do everything, because initially there was about 13 different focus areas, and we said, hey, we've got to narrow it down. And so the task force decided on 2nd Avenue, given its proximity to Fair Park, what could this be? Could this be an entertainment district lined with small businesses? We're looking at Elsie Faye Higgins. There's some opportunities there at 2nd Avenue with the shopping center that is currently there. MLK Dart Station, all of the areas surrounding that, Malcolm X Boulevard, as well as Queen City, which is a historical residential African-American neighborhood. So just to highlight some things that are going on in real time, it was Commissioner Wheeler who helped organize the South Dallas Neighborhood Coalition. This is something that has been needed for a very long time, and we were able to pretty much gather about 50 residents at this meeting. Councilmember Bazadua attended, and from there, this is the group that kind of helped us analyze some housing design standards that Patrick will speak about later. We meet quarterly now with this neighborhood coalition, and it's a way for them to exchange information with one another and keep everyone abreast of what's going on in their neighborhoods. Point South Revitalization Committee. This is a group of landowners, property owners in South Dallas, and they meet every month. They always have representation from city staff present, and so currently they are working on some action items and infrastructure needs with our city manager's office, and so they're trying to move forward with development and really focused on the MLK Dart Station area. So, also want to highlight the, again, interdepartmental collaboration. This is the Office of Environmental Quality and Sustainability. So we started hosting these meetings pretty much quarterly, getting out of the office, getting property owners and land developers involved to see what funding opportunities could OEQS assist them with their different projects. Also, one of the recommendations from a housing perspective with the area plan was for South Dallas to be a target strategy area. Well, housing has designated South Dallas Fair Park to become a neighborhood revitalization strategy area. And so what this simply means is that in the future, federal funding dollars that housing has will be allocated in this specific area for long-term development of housing. And currently, Queen City has been approved by the Landmark Commission. This was last June of 2024 to get historic designation. And so currently what they are doing is working with our historic preservation team to determine what exactly they will preserve and how they will do new residential housing in the future. And they should be having a survey coming up this spring where we're gonna go out and take photos of all the historical homes within the boundary lines. And I don't know if you can see, but that little red square that's highlighted in the middle, that is Queen City. And so at this time, I'm gonna pass it back to Patrick so he can go over the exciting land use recommendations.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. So in the area plan, there are a number of recommendations that revolve around infrastructure, economic development, community well-being, history and culture and housing, those focus areas that the task force wanted to focus on. All of those recommendations, again, come from those community members, those task force members. As Ms. Jackson has kind of gone over, a lot of those are real-time implementations. So that's working with housing to get them out there. When we're talking about community well-being, they're talking about how we need to do environmental remediation. So that's getting OEQS out there and having those tours. All of those things in the plan we are uplifting. A number of those things are things that CPC
We are recording. It is 9:57 a.m. My apologies for the delay. We are back online, and we'll continue with the briefing.
Thank you for your patience. So again, talking about the area plan and the land use recommendations here in South Dallas, the two big points that the plan states is to have design standards for new housing in the neighborhoods in South Dallas. The other one is to revitalize commercial corridors as mixed-use corridors and have mixed-use areas around our transit-oriented development. That might sound a little similar to the conversations that we had a couple months ago. So when we talk about the mixed-use areas of South Dallas. So a lot of South Dallas, the main corridors or commercial corridors or older commercial corridors, they're zoned for solely commercial. Here on the map, again, this was adopted as for Dallas, but in the area plan, it's consistent as well. The yellow on the map, again, those are the neighborhoods. The brown on the map, those are going to be most of the commercial corridors. If you go to the right or the east of the blue, that's Fair Park, that's going to be Fitzhugh. And then we have 2nd Avenue, Elsie Fay Higgins, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X. Those are the areas that are defined as the low-rise mixed use. The bright red, those are going to be the mid to high-rise mixed use, and the dark red is going to be the mid to high-rise mixed use. Again, going over the low-rise areas in a little more detail, that's going to be Fitzhugh, that's to the east of Fair Park. That's 2nd Avenue, that's coming off of Fitzhugh. Then it's Elsie Fay Higgins, that's going to come down there on the south. Then we have Malcolm X and the southern portion of Martin Luther King. Again, these are zoned for commercial right now. The area plan says that these should be changed to areas that would allow for residential, commercial, office, retail, and mixed use of a low rise that would be 4 stories or less. The low to mid rise, that's going to be the bright red areas. That's the area in the far east that's going to be around the Hatcher Street station, and Hatcher Street is now Elsie Fay Higgins. It's also J.B. Jackson, that street. That's going to be the street that's a couple of blocks off of Fair Park to the south of it. And then the area there's an orange area, that's Jeffrey Myers. That's going to be the area around Jeffrey Myers. That's in the PED, would also be that community mixed use or that low to mid-rise mixed use. The mid to high rise, that's going to be the stuff that's closest to Fair Park. That's going to be around the MLK station along Robert B. Cullen, which is the street that fronts Fair Park, and then the northern part of MLK. Again, that's going to be the area that's kind of in the burgundy or the dark red. So when we talk about the neighborhoods of South Dallas, and we talk about the design standards, so this is a conversation that we had over the course of about 4 years. And in the beginning of the conversation, they said, what are we want to preserve the housing in South Dallas. We don't like all of these new houses that are being built next to the existing housing. And as we continued that conversation, what we really got to was one task force member talked about the grossly incompatible housing. It wasn't necessarily that all the housing they didn't like, it was the ones that were the most egregious. And we had a lot of conversations about, okay, if that's what the idea is, what are the tools to get there? Talked about the neighborhood stabilization overlay. We brought in conservation district staff and historic district staff. And as Ms. Jackson mentioned, Queen City 100% jumped on the historic district. We want to be a historic district. But as we talked to the other communities, they were apprehensive about the historic district and even the conservation district, because there was an idea, okay, we're going to do one big conservation district. But what folks in South Dallas told us is, well, no, that doesn't work, because the houses on Romine aren't like the houses on Pine, and the houses on Pine aren't like the houses on Pennsylvania, and the houses on Pennsylvania aren't like the ones on Metropolitan. And, okay, well, could we do 13 different conservation districts? Okay, if we're going to do that, then we're still going to be doing conservation districts in 2035 because of just that workload. And so when we really started to talk about what are those concepts, what prevents the grossly incompatible housing that goes up there, we got to basically 5 different concepts that folks in South Dallas talked about that we were able to put together. And I use my hand to reference them because it's how I remember, but it's 5 concepts. It's a porch in the front, it's a garage in the back, it's maximum 2 stories of height, some type of a pitched roof, and a smaller driveway up front. And I know that right now some of you CPC members are saying, okay, what does a garage in the back mean? And okay, what does a front porch is? And what's the width and what's the depth and what's the pitch on the roof? But before we get into those details, again, trying to understand with those 5 concepts, what's the grossly incompatible house that you're trying to say we don't want that? So here on the screen, we have 2 different houses. One has a front porch, has a pitched roof, the garage is offset, it has 1-car driveway. It meets those standards that we talk about, porch in the front, garage in the back, 2 stories max, pitched roof. The one there on the right, that's the type of house that South Dallas said, that's the type of housing we don't want, right? The garage is up front, the front yard is all driveway, it's very boxy, it has that flat roof. That's the type of house they said, that's the grossly incompatible ones that we want to talk about not having in South Dallas. So again, porch in the front, garage in the back, maximum 2 stories, some type of a pitched roof, and a smaller driveway. And to be clear, when we say garage in the back, we are not talking about alley access. South Dallas, there are not alleys in all of those neighborhoods. In fact, a number of those neighborhoods don't have alley access. So we're not talking about access from the back. It could be in the form from access from the back. It could be access from the side. It could be a detached garage that's in the rear 30%. It could be a attached garage that's then offset from the front facade by a certain percentage or a certain linear feet. So there's different concepts about what that garage in the back would be. Same thing with the porch. There's probably 5 or 6 design elements of a porch: width, depth, elevation difference from the grade. Is it covered? Is there a railing? It most likely in the authorized hearing, those are those details that are going to flesh out to say, okay, here are those different things, and to meet the requirement, you have to hit 4 out of the 6 different details. The authorized hearing is going to get through some of those details. We've already had a lot of conversations with this, the South Dallas Neighborhood Coalition about some of those design ideas and, getting a little bit in front of that authorized hearing. But to be clear, those design guidelines are going to come in the authorized hearing. The area plan says these are the 5 things that we should be thinking about. So we had further conversations with the neighborhoods about what they like, what they don't like, and what they're what we want to learn more about. Again, what they like, the existing housing that's out there. The new housing that looks like the older housing. What they don't like, the new homes that are grossly incompatible. What they don't like was big apartment buildings in the middle of the interior of the neighborhoods. What they said, well, let's talk about this, is duplexes and ADUs, because they said there are plenty of duplexes and ADUs already in South Dallas. And as one task force member put it, a duplex is just a house with two front doors. But those are the ones that are existing in South Dallas, the ones that were built 50 years ago, 80 years ago, 100 years ago. And so they said, if you can make the new duplexes look like the duplexes that are already out there, that's something that we would be interested in hearing. Same thing with ADUs. If we can have design requirements about it, then that's something that we're looking forward, or we're looking into. So the recommendations for duplexes. So to be clear, the area plan does not recommend allowing duplexes in any of the single-family zoning districts. It does not recommend allowing those duplexes by right in the R5, the R7.5, or there's an R3.8 sub-district. It does not do that. And if anyone says, oh, it's going to do that, no, it 100% does not make that recommendation. If you want to build a duplex in an area right now in South Dallas that's zoned for single family, you would still have to apply to change the zoning on that area or on that property to build a duplex. And I know CPC, you're already getting those requests almost at every meeting, getting those requests in South Dallas to build those duplexes. So what the area plan recommends is that that duplex zoning district have the same design standards as the R districts, the same porch in the front, garage in the back, max 2 stories, some type of a pitched roof and a smaller driveway. And so it gives the option that if someone comes in and says, I'd like to build a duplex here, you still have to change the zoning, but it gives a base zoning district in the PD that has the same design standards as the single family homes that are out there. To add in, so in that conversation that we had about the duplexes, because in South Dallas we heard that's a good option. It's not an everywhere option. We don't want it by right, but it's an option that we could put out there. But they also wanted to talk about ownership, because in some neighborhoods in South Dallas that aren't in the PD, they're building duplexes, but they're able to subdivide the property where they're able to sell the land and the house that's on top of it, as opposed to just having it be a rental option. So we have these two diagrams that's on the screen. The one on the left is one lot and a duplex land use, where you have 2 different units on it. The one on the right is technically 2 lots. It's still the same structure, but you're able to subdivide that property. And when you're able to do that, you're able to sell both the land and the structure to someone. And so when we talked with South Dallas, in particular, our chair, Scotty Smith, and the former council member Diane Ragsdale, they talked about, okay, that's something that we're interested in because that promotes home ownership. That's a way for families in South Dallas to build wealth, that you're not just building a duplex that you can then rent, but you're building the same structure that you're then able to sell to 2 households. So the area plan has that recommendation that that's another possibility. Not that you're able to buy a property, rezone it for a duplex, and then build 4 units. You're still building the same structure. It's just you're able to subdivide that structure and sell both the land and the house. For ADUs, again, they talked about how that's a granddaddy's house, and they're out there already in South Dallas, and some of them were permitted and some of them weren't permitted. And in South Dallas, they said these are things that we're interested in having. We just want them to have the same design standards that the single-family houses would have, and that the design standards that are already in place in 51A, to say, these are things that we want. We don't want to have to go to the Board of Adjustment to build these. This is the tiniest thing that we can do to address some of the housing that's going on to allow these. And so the area plan recommends allowing these by right, subject to the design standards that would be in each one of those, the R5, the R7.5, and the R3.8 zoning districts, which again, porch in the front, garage in the back, 2 stories of height, some type of pitched roof, smaller driveway, and then 51A has some design standards about what an accessory dwelling unit is. So there are a couple other land uses that the plan makes changes to. Again, when you get the plan, you can go over them. It talks about how you should allow catering. Right now, you have to get an SUP to be a caterer in South Dallas. Right now, you can't do a restaurant where all your food is to go. Massages aren't allowed, but we would allow them as an accessory use if you're doing a nail salon or personal service. Right now, tobacco stores are not allowed, and it's moving the vape shops into that tobacco land use. We would be keeping convenience stores as an SUP because there's still that concern. The other one to bring up is parking. So that was brought up time and time again by our business owners and our property owners in South Dallas, that was a detriment to them being able to develop their properties. And that community members were frustrated that they didn't have those restaurants, that retail, that personal service to go to in South Dallas, a lot of times because those local businesses couldn't open up. So I know CPC and council is looking at parking right now. If it's addressed through CPC and council, then the area plan wouldn't have a recommendation to change anything. If it's not addressed through council or through CPC and council, then the area plan right now, it calls for a reduction or removal of the location and the amount of the parking mandate. And again, that would get a little bit more fleshed out in the authorized hearing about what exactly that means. But to be clear, it says that right now, the requirement for the parking is too high, and there's an additional provision in the PD that says no parking can be anywhere in the front 30 feet. So it's removing that 30 feet and then either removing the mandate or looking at reducing that mandate for parking. So the next steps, again, we will have a draft of the plan to y'all, CPC, also posted online, available for public comment. Moving forward, we would have a public hearing at CPC. Based upon that public hearing and the input from CPC, we can move forward with a recommendation at that time or at a later meeting. Eventually, we would have council action, and then once council has taken action, we would do the authorized hearing, which is that process. We would be coming back to you saying, okay, what do we mean when we said porch? Is it 8 feet deep? Is it 6 feet deep? Is it half of the facade? Is it 10 feet wide? We would have those details at that point. And with that, myself and Ms. Jackson would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Questions, commissioners? Commissioner Wheeler, please.
I know that I posed the question is, could you answer what was the kind of feedback on the question that we asked? What do you leave South Dallas for on Saturday mornings?
So it was a lot of, I'm leaving South Dallas, because that was a question that we asked of, if you live in South Dallas, but you're not, what happens Saturday morning, where are you going? It was a lot of, I'm going somewhere else to eat, I'm going somewhere else to get groceries, I'm going somewhere else to get my hair done, to get my nails done, I'm going somewhere else to work out. It was a lot of that retail, restaurant, and personal service use that is not ample in South Dallas.
And was that because of a good majority of the buildings that are vacant is not necessarily by choice, is because of the hindrance of zoning, especially related to the parking?
That is a hurdle for many of the business owners who tried to open up in South Dallas, is they couldn't meet the development requirements, namely the parking requirement to open up their business there. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And one more thing. Could you, as far as this is leading to the public hearing, would you say that you all have done a great amount of work that, whereas if in other districts when they're preparing for public hearing, that they would have to do another 5 years, but you all have done a good amount of that foundation work with the community?
I would say the community is probably better suited to answer that question. From staff's perspective, we have been incredibly active in South Dallas.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hall.
In the high-rise zone, is there a max height for the high-rises?
So in the authorized hearing, we deal with the max height. When we talk to property owners and developers out there, they're not really concerned about a maximum height because they've told us, at least for the here and now, that 8 and 10 and 12 stories, that they're not thinking about anything higher than that. But we can get into what a hypothetical max height would be in the authorized hearing and then codify what that height would be.
It's probably not likely you would have buildings like you do in the central downtown district.
So, I mean, again, it's kind of looking into the future. Yeah. The developers that we talked to said, no, they don't think 40 stories is something that's appropriate here or that they could get funding for. But I will also point out that, across the freeway in Deep Ellum, heights have gotten bigger than they, in the past couple of years. And so it's something to definitely be cognizant of. I think one of the things that the task force looked at when they were talking about height was making it at Robert B. Cullum across from Fair Park to say that's where we can go really tall, but then saying, no, a couple of blocks in, that should be low or mid-rise to say, yes, there might be some opportunities for some pretty tall buildings, but not many of them.
Okay. And I was intrigued by the diagram where you split a duplex in half and you sold one side. Two different properties. Is that because the house is already built across the property line, or would you have to replat a property to split that house in half?
So that came from, so again, in the Jeffrey Myers area, we have builders who are building the diagram on the right, which is they took a property, they replatted it for 2 lots, and they built a structure that is connected in the middle that looks like a duplex. Walking down the street, you and I would say it's a duplex, but technically they've subdivided the land, and now they can sell the land and the house. So it would be more of a case of new construction, of people saying, we want to create a home ownership opportunity, because we also heard that from the nonprofit, the Habitat and the Chodos that are out there to say, yeah, if we could do that, that doubles our output on the number of housing units and the number of opportunities for households to build that wealth. But right now you can't do that in South Dallas. So it's a recommendation that in that duplex zoning district, you create that option.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to it. It's interesting concept. Do our city codes, design standards, et cetera, allow something, basically 2 houses that are right next to each other on the property line?
Yes, sir. But that there is a way to write, our building code doesn't prohibit that. International Building Code doesn't prohibit that. It is just our zoning or development code. And so it's just creating that option in the PD to say, here's a district that could allow that.
Thank you. Any other questions, commissioners? Commissioner Forsythe.
Could you show the map of the area, please? Is this whole area in the PD 595?
It is not. There are some areas, because this is the service district map. There are some areas on this map that are not in the PD. This area plan provides, guidance for the entire area, but it makes recommendations about changing specific areas in the PD. And we can get you a map of the PD outlines. It's a little difficult to see because it's not always continuous. It's kind of looking, we can get you that map. It's just a little bit difficult to look at and to understand from a concept.
Is it 80% or 90% of this area?
It's, so.
Is it fully contiguous within this area too?
Right, so if it doesn't include, so the big green area, it doesn't include that. It doesn't include the blue area, that's going to be Fair Park. But basically, the majority, 90% of the area that is to the west of the blue and is to the south, is to the west of the green and the south of the blue, it's about 90% of that. There are some carve-outs, though.
And are these design standard changes that you've addressed in your PowerPoint presentation, are they to be incorporated into the PD 595?
Yes, they would be. The area plan makes those recommendations. The area plan doesn't, when the area plan is approved, if it's approved with those recommendations, a new house doesn't have to comply, but then the zoning would be changed, and in the new zoning, when you submit your building plan, it would say, here are the design requirements. So just like there's a setback right now in the PD, it would say, here's a setback, and here's a standard for the garage or the front porch or those things. It would have design requirements that you would then have to comply with if you're going to build a new house in South Dallas.
But those design standards apply to the PD 595, not to the whole area?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hampton.
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up on one question that Commissioner Hall had asked earlier about the designation of Queen City, which is underway. Are there other National Register historic districts that are within the study area boundaries that the community would be interested in considering formalizing within the city process?
So in the study area, there are additional historic districts that already have that designation, Wheatley Place, South Boulevard, Park Row. There are not other areas in the study area that do not already have a historic district, that are not Queen City, that expressed a desire to do a historic district.
Okay, and so, but there was discussion about the other, because I believe there's two other, and again, I'm just asking the question if it was anything that the community was aware that they had those opportunities available.
Yes, we did have conversations with a number of different communities about that possibility, and at the end of the day, they did not express a desire to do that conservation district.
Okay.
We connected them with city staff to explore that option, but they, at this point, they have not chosen to do that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Wheeler, second round, please.
What you said, Colonial Hills is actually one of those districts that is open to that, which is directly on the opposite side of SM Wright Boulevard from Queen City for that designation?
Yes, and so we had some conversations with Colonial Hills about that possibility. And again, if moving forward they decide to pivot, we can make changes to the area plan to say, yes, they would actually like to do that. What I would also say is, because the recommendations right now for the authorized hearing would be to remove Queen City from the PD. If in doing the authorized hearing, Colonial Hills decides that they also want to do that option and they don't want the design standards, they want to do a historic district, we can work with them in the authorized hearing to do a similar process to Queen City.
Could you explain that there are additional PDs that are inside of PD 595, within the boundaries of PD 595 that were set aside for, because certain businesses, historical businesses, would not meet the standards of PD 595 and would essentially close, especially along that 2nd Avenue corridor and Bear Street?
Yes, there's areas in the study area that are not in, technically not in PD 595, have their own PED to address certain issues. That includes Bear Street, that includes that area, 2nd Avenue, that's further south or southeast. Again, there are similar recommendations for those areas to say that if a private zoning change comes up, you should be looking at the area plan. But because it's not in PD 595, there's not a direct recommendation that we change the zoning in those other PDs to make them mixed use specifically.
Also, could you explain like those areas that have, such as that are longer corridors, pretty much business corridors, but they have different, such as Malcolm X, 2nd Avenue, Elsie Faye Higgins, how those corridors we had to address and look at each corridor separately to apply zoning in sections, recommendations in sections instead of just a full corridor based off of the flow of traffic,
Right, and so
community.
what the area plan recommends is that those corridors become mixed use and that we change the zoning. And so if because there are areas along those corridors that they don't have commercial zoning, they just have residential zoning. And so the recommendations isn't necessarily to change that zoning, but it's to change the commercially zoned property that are on those corridors. And so if you go down Elsie Faye or if you're on Malcolm X, there are pockets where it's just housing, it's just single family housing, and the recommendation isn't to change that, but it's to change those areas that already have the commercial zoning on it to make those the mixed use areas.
Okay. Could you also address how the task force for this particular area plan has been essential in assisting in zoning or other related cases and getting the information, making sure that the community is heavily involved in this process, acting as almost a secondary, acting as a kind of a liaison between city staff and the community for most of the other projects in other departments.
So one of the things the task force brought up was exactly that point, that there was kind of sometimes a lack of coordination between the different community members. And so one of the recommendations is to create either a formal or informal group that would be able to weigh in on issues in South Dallas as a whole. The two different groups that staff has been working with that have been created since the area planning process started is the South Dallas Neighborhood Coalition, which meets quarterly, and then the Point South Revitalization Committee, which meets monthly. The Neighborhood Coalition is more a coalition of the folks that live in the neighborhood. The Point South group is more business owners and property owners. We meet with both of those groups, and I would point out that both those groups very much so have an understanding of walking hand in hand, that you are preserving those neighborhoods while allowing for more development along those corridors. That's something that both of those groups have said they are interested in. And that as zoning cases come up, as housing wants to have meetings, as transportation comes up to have those conversations, those are the groups where they call Lindsay or Patrick up and say, we want to talk to South Dallas. We say, okay, go talk with these two groups. Let's get you set up to have a conversation with both of them.
One last question. I know that a lot of concern is around housing, how this area plan task force not being closed out currently, how we've also had to address with the development services on housing that might not be conforming, but because we know that the majority of the street meets have setbacks, that the recommendation shouldn't be to tear down a house, to actually look at the whole street as a whole, preferably Pine Street. I guess I got it right. My mind is.
Right. So there are some streets in South Dallas that the majority of the houses that are on those properties are non-conforming. They basically don't meet setbacks. They're too close to the street for the current zoning districts. And when we had those conversations about if we change those setbacks, what happens to that house, because changing those setbacks might mean that then somebody can come in and say, I'm going to knock down that older house and I'm going to build a very new house very close to that street. And so the area plan talks about how we can, again, create those new design standards for those different houses, but that we're not creating design standards on certain streets that would lead to more displacement because of those older structures being removed, because we're changing some of those setbacks to be more accommodating for new houses.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, we need to pick up the pace a little bit. We have two more questions. Commissioner Housewright and Commissioner Hampton will take us home.
I don't really have a question, just a comment that the design standards, I think, are something we're going to need. Well, one, I think they're very appropriate. Two, I think we'll need consideration of that kind of design standard really all over the city sooner rather than later. When we get so many concerns from residents coming down here in these neighborhoods that have this redevelopment momentum going on in them, and it's generally the same comments about the big duplexes and the flat roofs and the big garages. And so I can support the kind of things you all are talking about there and there.
Thank you. Commissioner Hampton.
And just one follow-up, as you all are talking with the community about consideration of historic districts and designations, I noted that Wheatley Place, while a designated district, varies from their National Register boundaries, if that's something that the city or that the residents wanted to consider. And I can't find the designation area for Queen City to confirm any variance, but there's an adjacent, and I will apologize, I'm probably going to mispronounce the name, Romine Avenue is also a designated National Register district. May or may not want to consider that, as you all are also talking to Colonial Hill. So just wanted to note that, and happy to follow up with Commissioner Wheeler offline.
So I think it's to come in on it. So the majority of Queen City, for whatever reason, the historical district, it being a historical district, it also, some kind of way it never made to the city, and we don't know why. But Romine is definitely because of the historical properties, but they have been, because of the national, it has been altered some, and that's why, Romine is definitely the one, it has the older buildings. Yep. And I guess I'd make a comment. I've never been more pleased with city staff, especially with these two young people right here, working diligently, and not just working as saying, this is my job, but actually getting together with other members of city staff and saying, hey, this is who you go to, and it's been flow, and they help us flow so well with other issues that really address in real time before this makes it to the authorized hearing, but that we're addressing things in real time that we would have never been able to address in the past without the help of this PUD staff, and especially talking with Director Liu and saying, hey, how do we get design standards for the majority of Dallas, and how do we go about doing that? So I have been very pleased. I call them regularly about, hey, this is something new. And so where the other 13 task force closed out early, we've been open for 5 years because we keep addressing new issues, and so thank you all for being. We're near the end and we're ready. This has been hard.
Thank you very much.
Chair, if I can. Is Darryl
Commissioner
online?
Herbert, please, sir.
Yes. Okay, really quick. I know we're pushing for time. I just, again, thank you for this opportunity. Quick question. Queen City, I know is kind of broken up in the sections. For instance, where Juanita Craft House is Queen City, a block away, I think isn't in the designation. Has the designation been expanded to other houses who have been built in the same time period, or is it still the same historic designation as before?
So our historic staff is working on the boundaries of Queen City and surveying not just Queen City, but Colonial Hills and the surrounding area. And based upon that work and then what Queen City, the community comes together to have the conversation with, they would be defining their boundaries, which may be different than what the National Historic District are, and it can be different. So if they want to include certain areas or not include certain areas, they can do that.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you again, Chair.
Thank you. And Mr. Blaze and Ms. Jackson, thank you very much for the briefing. Commissioners, we're going to just keep going right into the docket. We have our consent agenda items now consistent of cases 2 through 12. Cases 7 and 11 at this point have come off consent. 7 and 11 have come off. And 10? Okay, 7, 11, and 10 have come off. And 12, 7, 11. So we have 7, 10, 11, and 12 have come off consent at this point. 3 come off too? 3 has come off consent as well too. That's correct. So we have 3, 7, 10, 11, and 12. Sorry?
16, if it's on consent, can you pull it?
It's not on consent yet.
Thank you. Sorry.
Okay, so we'll begin with case number 2.
Morning, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Wonderful. Good morning, Commission. Happy New Year. Bear with me. Share screens.
Okay. This one we will brief only at request, and Commissioner Carpenter is okay now. 7 can come back. Okay, so 7 we'll keep that one on consent. Does anybody have any questions on number 2 before we move on? Okay, how about 3 has come off consent, so let's brief that one. We're going to keep 3 off consent, right, Commissioner Wheeler? Okay, we'll take 3 off consent. Let's go ahead and brief that one then.
Okay, very good. Swap here. Okay. Thank you, Commission. It's case number 3 on your agenda, 234-111. Over on South Buckner, it's a request for renewal of specific use permit number 2269 for the sale of alcoholic beverages in conjunction with a convenience store, 3,500 square feet or less. It's at the northeast corner of South Buckner and Forney Road. It's a little over a half acre of land developed with a convenience store that's a little over 3,000 square feet. It is in the LI, that's the Light Industrial District. It does have a D1 liquor control overlay. That's what's requiring the SUP. It's over towards the eastern portions of the city. You can see its relationship there to Buckner and Forney. Looking at surrounding uses, offices, some undeveloped properties, the LI district to the north, south, and east, with a multiple commercial district to the west across South Buckner. During the site visit, taking a look, this is heading southbound on South Buckner. Taking a look back at the site, taking a look on the site and This is actually a street, Google Street View. Apologies, I didn't get a photo from the south side of the site, so just want to make sure we have that for reference if we need it. No changes to the proposed site plan. With that, staff is recommending approval for a 5-year period with eligibility for automatic renewals for additional 5-year periods.
Thank you, sir. Questions, commissioners? Any questions on this item? Okay, let's go to case number 4. That is staying on consent. I don't need it briefed unless someone would like to request that or has any questions on it. Okay, takes us to case number 5.
Chair, second. Stop sharing. Let's see here.
Commissioner Franklin, would you like this one brief, sir, or? No? Okay. Anyone has any questions on number 5 or would like to request to brief it? Sure. Yes, sir, Commissioner Hall.
The only question I had was, I didn't see how many years of crime statistics were in there.
Thank you, Commissioner, for the question. I usually request for the same time period back or from the previous renewal, since the previous renewal. That's usually the time frame that I request from our folks over at police. Is that?
Maybe I wasn't paying attention, but okay, but how many years was that?
That would be, I believe, for a 5-year period. Is
a 5-year period?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
A quick question, Chair, on that one.
Yes, sir, please, Commissioner Herbert.
Yes, is the applicant planning any improvements to their site or their security plans? It's a high crime area, right? Do you know any of what they're doing with their appearance, cleaning up the place, any of that landscape plan, any of it?
I'm unaware of that, Commissioner Herbert. That might be a question for the applicant.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That one is on consent, Commissioner Herbert. If you want to ask the applicants any questions, we can take it off.
If you don't mind, I'd like to ask those questions.
Okay, so let's take number 5 off. Take off consent. That takes us to number 6. Let's circle back on number 6. Takes us to and 7. Number 8. Mr. Franklin, would you like that one briefed?
No, we can keep this on consent.
Okay, we'll keep that on consent. Any questions or request to brief number 8? Okay, takes us to number 9. Commissioner Forsyth, would you like that one briefed, sir?
No, you can keep this on consent.
Thank you, sir. Any questions or request to brief? Yes, Commissioner Housewright.
I guess this would be for Mr. Clinton, but I don't see him. I don't understand why this applicant is subject to the residential buffer zone. I mean, it's residential next to residential, so there's something that I clearly don't understand. But the applicant seems to be burdened with this when they've got an unusually small lot and they're right next to other residentials. So can you explain to me why we're asking them to create this buffer zone?
Yes, so that was actually a typo on staff's part. So that's not required.
So it's not a thing. Great, thank you.
I can add that I asked that question of Mr. Irwin yesterday, and he confirmed that it's not required.
Thank you, Commissioner Carpenter. Any other questions on this item, commissioners? Okay, takes us to number 10. Commissioner Hampton, would you like this one briefed? Number 10. Yeah, oh, that's right. 10 came off consent. My apologies. Are we going to hear it or should we?
We're going to hold it under advisement until February the 6th and no briefing needed.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. So we will hold that one under advisement to February 6th. Takes us to number 11. Commissioner Kingston, would you like that one briefed? No? Okay, Commissioners, any questions on number 11? Okay, takes us to 12. Commissioner Hampton.
I'll defer to Mr., or if anyone had questions, I have no questions.
Okay. Please, Commissioner Carpenter.
In the report, it says that removal of the urban form setback improves walkability. I was wondering how that was decided.
Yes, thank you. Generally in the planning field, a lower setback means buildings are going to be able to be closer to the street, and a building closer to the street is typically better for walkability.
Okay, could you also elaborate on the intrusions into that 15-foot setback that are being added? Is that because, I'm taking it that this whole case is coming back because the design of the building did not meet the PD in certain ways, and so they must have a design that has certain, canopy and walkways that are not meeting the standards?
Yes, and it's mainly around that. I mean, there were projections, or as you say, or as the code says, encroachments into the setback permitted before. There was a couple elements. This one has also added pedestrian pathway, entrance drive, and canopy structures, and mechanical airways. So part of that is to accommodate a building that's going to be, in this case, I believe on Forest Park, where it would project a like a drop-off area where they have a drop-off area pretty typical of hospitals, but it's to accommodate that, and a lot of it is because of just adjustments to the plan versus the original PD.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Hampton, please.
Just one follow-up, Mr. Pepe. Are you aware that the primary reason for the request have to do with the parking garage? I understand that I'll just ask, from a land use rationale, would the use as a parking garage removing a setback also be considered walkable?
Well,
improving walkability?
I'd rather have some building near the street than no building. Building, even if it's a parking garage, is still going to cast things like shade and definition. So I'm not going to say that it's going to be, because that part is mainly for the parking garage, is going to be walkable necessarily, but it's an improvement, any improvement. So I, as a planner, would rather have a building of some kind close to a street to cast shade and other things.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions on this item? Okay, that was 12? That was 12. Okay, that takes us to our cases under advisement. Do we have any changes or updates to case number 13? Do we have a request for a briefing of case number 13? Okay. We'll get Ms. Munoz just in case there are any questions.
So you would like to run through this one then?
Good morning, Ms. Munoz. Okay, Ms. Munoz is here. Commissioners, any questions on this case for Ms. Munoz? Any questions from our folks online? Okay.
Will we be rebriefing this item right now?
Pardon me?
Would you like this item to be rebriefed at this time?
No, there was no request for briefing, and there are no questions on this item. So thank you very much, Ms. Munoz.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, we'll go to case number 14. Has this been briefed before? Oh, it has been briefed before, yes. Any questions or changes? Commissioner Herbert, would you like it briefed again, sir?
I'm not sure if our newer commissioners have had a chance to look at this case thoroughly. It may help them. It may be a good learning lesson to have it brief.
Thank you, sir. Let's do it.
So we'd just like to go through the PowerPoint again as a refresher?
Correct.
Yes. Our WebEx crashed here, so I need hopefully 30 seconds.
Thank you, Michael.
Okay, so here once again is this case Z223220. I'll just kind of go through quickly to refresh your memory, but it's a general zone change. It's located down the southwest part of the city off Camp Wisdom, and it is an application for MF2, a multifamily district on property zoned NSA, Neighborhood Service District, with deed restrictions Z889187. And an AA agricultural district on the north line of West Camp Wisdom Road between Clark Road and Royal Cedar Way. It's 4.8 acres, and the purpose is to permit residential uses on the site. Here's the site. As you'll recall, the current zoning is that commercial NSA. There's some multifamily PD zoning to the northwest. Outside of city limit is to the south, and there's a single-family neighborhood across the way to the east. And so, zoned to NSA, it's undeveloped right now. They're proposing those residential uses. There are existing deed restrictions that don't interfere with what they're trying to do since they regulate commercial uses. That MF2 is going to be appropriate on this site, given the macro factors. And as for the site overall, I'll run down along Camp Wisdom, looking down Camp Wisdom, outside city limit, the property to the west, properties, those are actually to the east, excuse me. No, they're the west, looking southwest. And there's the property as it is. I did include the floodplain layer because there was questions about that. And the overall lay of the land on the site. So existing, we've got that commercial NSA, and then we've got multifamily as the proposed zoning. Staff recommendation is approval.
Thank you, sir. Questions, Commissioner? Commissioner Herbert, any questions, sir?
No, just quick. We've had a lot of conversations, a lot of talk about the specific site. I know we've had a lot of flack about holding cases, but this was a very unique location with a lot of unique challenges. We've had a lot of conversations around engineering and other things outside of zoning, but it took a lot of conversation to get there and to understand that a lot of this is kind of out of our purview. We have some issues around the land use and the approval, but outside that, the major issues were outside of our purview here. And I just wanted to get everything out that from the beginning so that the new commissioners were able to see it. So thank you. No additional questions, but there haven't been any additional changes, right, Michael?
Not official ones that are in relation to the zoning case that we can have on the record.
Thank you, Commissioner Herbert. It's actually very helpful. You're right. We do have a couple of new colleagues, and the history of this case was very helpful to get on the record, so I appreciate it, sir. Commissioners, takes us to case, yes, sir, Commissioner, my apologies.
Mr. Pepe, you're aware we've had this case under advisory since September, so it might be nice if we could get this done. I just want to clarify, and I think Commissioner Herbert maybe did it for us, but this body is only considering zoning and land use, not any challenges related to engineering, topography, floodplain, anything like that.
Yes, all of those things have processes that exist within the city, within the development process that must be followed. Doesn't really change. I mean, so on one hand, we don't have purview to control those with the zoning case, but at the same rate, changing the zoning doesn't change or give them any easier time going through those processes than they do today. They still have to go through it. If they were developed under their commercial zoning, it can be pretty stringent. Same thing will apply under the multifamily.
And so even if we approved the requested zoning, they still have a bunch of hurdles to jump through to bring a multi-story facility into fruition.
Yes, at their own risk.
So it's no done deal yet. And one final question, you're familiar with the really strong slope of this land from Camp Wisdom down. I was just curious how proximity slope or anything to do with height is measured when you have such a steep topography change.
You ask a great question, and it spawned about 45 to an hour of talking with my colleagues about how when we take RPS to measure on a grade. I guess the simplest way to put it is RPS acts on sites from points of origination, and it acts from property lines. The grade of the site that it's acting upon and where those buildings are located on it determines how RPS is being applied to them. The grade of the property line, so in this case, our property line is kind of up a hill. So they're up a hill. The RPS does not just generate from the top of that hill where the property line lives. It generates relative to the average grade of proposed buildings relative to the property line. So you take your average grade of where the buildings are at, draw a line over to the property line at that same elevation, and then generate an RPS slope from that relative to the building. So it's a long, complicated way of saying that they have to a degree, adjust their buildings down the slope. You don't get super extra credit for being on a hill potentially. You have to reach the average across that hill. So as you have RPS acting on it, as if they build down the slope, if they do build down the slope, the RPS is going to be brought down as the average grade of that building moves down the site. So it leads to a lower building than if you just said, my RPS generates from the top of this hill where this property line over in the east is. It's actually a bit lower because if they so choose to build their building nice and low, if in the lower parts of their site, the RPS is going to slope down with them. I said the same thing a couple of times, but it took me a few times to figure it out. And I'd be happy to point you to more resources on it because it's very interesting.
Thank you. Commissioner Forsyth, please.
My understanding is that there are deed restrictions on the original property that would limit the height of the development on that property. Are these deed restrictions moot if we change the zoning?
No, so the deed restrictions that apply to the property, there's no proposal to modify those deed restrictions. The deed restrictions which are labeled deed restrictions Z889187 track 2, those stay in place. Those still apply to any development that is built on the property. Just those deed restrictions, as listed in the report, say, a general merchandise food store of less than 3,500 is prohibited, a motor vehicle fueling station is prohibited, all other uses are allowed. So that's what the deed restrictions apply. I understand there may be reference to deed restrictions that regulate height. Those are the neighboring deed restrictions for Tract 1 of Z889187. So the deed restrictions do stay in place, but they are in regards to commercial zoning.
So you say that they don't apply then if this is rezoned to multifamily?
They do continue to apply, but they don't really make a difference because commercial uses are already prohibited in the multifamily zone. So they'll continue to stay there. If someone came and changed it from multifamily to commercial in 20 years, again, those deed restrictions will still apply. Those commercial deed restrictions will still apply. It's just they don't really do anything. If you say you can't build a gas station in a multifamily zone, they don't really do anything, but they still remain and apply.
So it's my understanding from the community that the proposed development is of a greater height than what the deed restrictions currently allow. Is that not the case?
There are two sets of deed restrictions in the area. If you can see this map, if I need to zoom in, there's Z889187, Tract 1, that's to the west. That's a multifamily zoning, and it has deed restrictions on it that limit height. I don't remember everything else those regulate, but they are a separate set of deed restrictions. They're for Tract 1. These are for Tract 2. Tract 2 deed restrictions are, which makes sense, they apply to commercial zoning, the commercial zoning that was approved for this site. So two separate parts of a document, two separate sets of regulations. Tract 1 regulations have never applied for this site because they're two geographically separate sets, but Tract 2 regulations definitely continue to apply.
Any other questions, commissioners? Okay, thank you, sir. Next case, do we need it brief? Any questions on case number 15? Any requests for briefing? Okay, case number 16, commissioners, is going to be held under advisement until February 6th. Okay, and let the record reflect that Commissioner Rubin has a conflict on that. Any questions on 16? Okay, takes us to 17, that's also going to be held under advisement until February 6th. Any questions on that? Okay, 18, I don't need it briefed. I think there were some questions before. Any questions on number 18? Commissioner Carpenter, please.
Yes, I do have a question about this, because the SUP is for commercial amusement inside, but it doesn't specify what type of commercial amusement inside it is. And for parking, if you fall into the category of other, the parking ratio is 1 to per 100, and this parking ratio was calculated at 1 to 300. So I was trying to figure out how that came about. And does the SUP need to specify what type of commercial amusement inside it is?
Thank you so much for the question, Commissioner Carpenter. I do have a slide in a presentation if you want me to share. Good catch and good explanation to give. Commercial amusement inside uses, there are a wide variety, and there are some that are called out by code, and like a dance hall or a bowling alley. So if you have a specific request for that, we would say limited to a dance hall. If not, it falls back to the original definition of commercial amusement inside, which this one is. When it goes to permitting, they cannot apply for a dance hall because the SUP doesn't say dance hall. It says commercial amusement inside. So they will be funneled into the commercial amusement inside use that is wider. The applicant explained he wants to do some sort of a visual art gallery, some sort of an event space. When they apply for a certificate of occupancy for this use specifically, there is a questionnaire. There are questions, and if there's something suspicious that throws them into a different type of commercial amusement inside that doesn't comply with the SUP, then they will need to either amend their operation and come back to amend the SUP. So commercial amusement inside, it has to fall back on the definition on the code. And it's correct, it doesn't need to be limited to, because they don't intend to do one of those uses that require specific use permit or something else. So that's the use. Now, as far as parking, you are right as well. Like each type of commercial amusement inside has a different parking ratio. Usually parking, as we know, and we say for every zoning case, is checked at permitting. It's not something that they can get out of. They will have to show it at permitting. I talked to the applicant. There are 18 parking spaces on site for the 4 suites. He restriped all of those. He's gonna explain. If, again, at permitting is deemed that they need more parking spaces, they will have to either modify to have a smaller footprint or find more parking. So that is something that they cannot get out of it. However, for a commercial amusement inside use, the SUP can specify a different ratio. So if the body wants to say the required parking for this is 8 spaces or 5 spaces, you can do that. One recommendation that I had, and I was gonna present it to the body, is to put in the SUP condition a maximum square footage of 2,200 square feet. This is the unit size. It's not included currently in the conditions. I would recommend to include that. I checked with the applicant, that's the square footage of the unit, and that's a maximum, as I said. That doesn't prohibit them to do smaller if they don't have enough parking.
No, I agree with you. I was trying to prevent this from having to come back to us if they, couldn't meet the parking ratio, because it didn't look like they were going to be able to with a use that fell into other. Yes, I would definitely recommend. I have to ask this a question. Doesn't it seem the way to move forward with this would be to limit the square footage and also specify a certain amount of parking?
Yes, I would recommend that as well.
But I have one additional question. There'd be a concern there if they're not restricted to a particular type of commercial amusement inside. This could also become an event center, which would then present some problems with parking. I don't think too many event centers would function well with a handful of parking spaces, while the visual and audio art gallery might. Is there a way to I don't think visual and audio art gallery are defined. Is there a way to write a SUP condition that this cannot be an event center? Would that be the easiest way to solve it?
I don't think so. I would say that's the purpose of the SUP. So if it comes back and we know that there are known issues with their extended operation, then that's why we put a term limit. This is a new SUP. I talked to the applicant. This is the first time he's planning to create this use. So I would say that that's the purpose of the SUP, to have a limited term.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Hall?
Just real quick, audio-visual thing, sort of like Meow Wolf or something like that?
I asked again, that's the concept that the applicant has. He's going to be here today. I would say you can ask him and they can explain what they intend to do. Yes.
Thank you. Any other questions on this item, commissioners? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Rudell. Commissioners, number 18 will need to be renoticed. Pardon me. Thank you. Number 19. Number 20 will need to be renoticed. 21 we have heard. If there are any questions on that one, we need to have Commissioner Kingston has a conflict. She'll need to step out. Any questions on 21? Commissioner Forsythe, I kind of see you going towards the microphone, sir. Which one would you
I
like?
just wanted to clarify on 20, are we going to hear this case, get a briefing on this?
Number 20?
Or can I ask questions regarding it?
Let's ask. There was a notice error on that one in terms of the sticker, so I'm not sure that we can even hold it. I
I'm not
think it's
asking
just
to hold it.
Yeah, it's as if it's not, yeah, thank you, Commissioner Cropper. It's as if it's not even printed on here because it wasn't noticed correctly, so it's like we don't even have it.
Oh.
So it will have to come back, re-noticed and come back. I'm not sure we have a date certain for that, do we?
Oh, okay.
We're looking at the next hearing, February 6th.
Next hearing.
Mhm.
So we have to just pretend it wasn't even on this docket, Commissioner.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Questions can still be asked to the planner or anything like that by email, so still totally fine to ask those questions.
Okay. Did you catch that, Commissioner Forsyth?
I did not.
Can you please repeat that, sir?
Despite the fact that we can't ask questions or discuss it here, we can still ask questions to the planner at any time, so that's still fair game. So, thank you.
Offline, yeah, you can email him. Yep. Thank you, sir. Okay, Commissioners, takes us to number 22.
Chair, really quickly, you asked
Yes.
to hold number 16. I didn't put that request in. I just wanted to make sure.
Oh. 16 was not going to be held, Commissioner?
No, we
Okay.
mean, I would like
Thank
the
you.
third.
I might have got my wires crossed on that one. My apologies. Thank you for catching that. Do we need that briefed?
Yes, definitely. This is the first time.
Do you have a conflict on 16?
Oh, yep.
Okay, let's hold on one second. Vice Chair Rubin has a conflict on number 16 and is going to step out. And in fact, he has stepped out of the chamber, so let's have a briefing on this one, number 16. Thank you, Commissioner Herbert.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes. Good call. I was like, I hadn't heard that, but here we are. No, I don't want an AI assistant. There we go. All right, so this is Z223304, and this is located in far southwest Dallas. And it's an application, 1, for a plan development district for MU1 mixed-use district uses, and 2, the termination of deed restrictions 834-123 on properties owned in RR Regional Retail District with deed restrictions 834-123 with consideration for an MU1 mixed-use district on the northeast line of West Camp Wisdom Road, northwest of the intersection of West Camp Wisdom Road and Clark Road. And it's about 13 acres in size. So the purpose of the request is to allow modified development standards, primarily relating to sidewalks, landscaping, mixed income housing, and design standards to develop the site with multifamily uses. Here's the site as it exists today. Here it is again. Yeah, so it's that RR zoning, and there's multifamily to the northeast, undeveloped property to the east. There's under construction motor vehicle fueling station to the south in that RR zoning. There's some multifamily across Camp Wisdom to the south, and there's some multifamily to the west. It's currently zoned that our regional retail. It's currently undeveloped. They are proposing just multifamily uses. They're proposing a PD that almost completely defaults to MU1. Staff does recommend just an MU1 base without the PD. There are deed restrictions on the property that need to be terminated to develop the project regardless of the base district, since they prohibit multifamily uses. But they act on that RR district. So I quickly wanted to talk about the necessity for plan development district. So again, it doesn't alter the base characteristics of MU1, height, space, yard lot space, that kind of stuff, density. The PD does not include really, the unique mixes or unique property characteristics that the plan development district calls for in our code. It also doesn't offer anything, atypical of a basic zoning case that you won't see. We have design standards built into the mixed income housing bonus that apply design standards regardless of the PD or not. And it does, the PD is potentially, the only thing it does do is offer minor exemptions to the design standards of 4.1107, the mixed income housing design standards. The staff hopes that they can meet. They wouldn't need a plan to be altered to do that, but we hope that they can just meet those rather than those exemptions. Let's get down to the site. So here we are on Clark Ridge, looking southeast. looking southeast as I go around the site, looking north. And it's looking north. I'm gonna move down towards that gas station under construction, then turn around the corner, go up towards Clark, go up Clark Road. The north part of this property is not within the area request, so it kind of stretches from two properties to another. And there's Clark Ridge, across Clark Ridge, the multifamily that exists today. And across Camp Wisdom, the properties to the south, multifamily in an undeveloped property, gas station under construction there. Dirt stop across Clark, looking east at undeveloped property, some multifamily up Clark. And then the neighboring lot to the north is undeveloped at this time. So here's a development plan as proposed. It does stretch from building from street to street, kind of, with a number of buildings located within multifamily uses only. Here is a little more zoomed in. So, development standards, again, we've got RR right now. They're proposing mixed-use base PD. We're proposing mixed use as a recommendation. It doesn't alter those. Those all remain the same under mixed use. I do find a mixed use can be the most appropriate district here. It is currently zone commercial. I think mixed use will allow at least kind of zone capacity for a mix of uses, potentially commercial if necessary in the long run, but it'll allow the multifamily, so it's still appropriate on site. Either way, their PD still defaults to that. Only changes, they kind of specify their mixed income housing density, should they use that bonus. Design standards, these are just the 4.1107 design standards generally. They do ask for exemptions on the height of fences and of the amount of units that have to have direct connections on the sidewalk and where parking can be placed. Staff generally likes to see those things in any mixed income project, make high quality projects for even the units where we have reduced rents or fixed rents. So we'd like to see those 4.1107 standards met by approving the base MU1. But those are the only exemptions that they are requesting at this time. The relevant deed restrictions that apply, if you can read those, let me know. But it's really right now, it just limits the floor area ratio, and it's very small, 2.25 to 1. It's going to be pretty difficult to build out any kind of multifamily on. You can only have a quarter of your lot developed as a floor area. So they do request to terminate those. And then the more detailed tract within the DR is a floor area ratio of 0.5 to 1, but then it does say that multifamily is prohibited. So that's a big part of what they need to terminate through this, and that's regardless of the PD or the mixed use that needs to happen in order to build the project. So point being, staff recommendation is approval of an MU1 mixed use district in lieu of that planned development district, and 2 termination deed restrictions DR 834-123. Questions?
Thank you, sir. Questions, commissioners?
Yes, Michael. Starting out, the history of this site, it was supposed to be retail. The neighbors always wanted it to be, but it seemed to be inundated by other multifamily. Is that correct?
There's a lot of multifamily surrounding this property. Obviously, when I went around the site, I listed 3-4 different multifamily large properties nearby. That's why staff, if we were looking for a good district to allow a multifamily development of this property, but allow some zone capacity and flexibility for a future commercial that is, I would say, necessary for a healthy area to have a mix of uses, we recommend that mixed use district. So that's the story.
Gotcha. So originally, I think the vision was to have a large box store here, and then today that just wouldn't even be feasible. Is that correct?
Oh, I can't speak to the feasibility, but it is zoned RR regional retail, which allows a lot of heavy commercial and large amount of retail uses.
Okay. And in regards to the exemptions, you mentioned there was an exemption for sidewalk. I think 60% of the ground level had to have access to sidewalks. Can you talk about that a little deeper? on why we would give that exemption, and why this type of interconnectivity is important?
Yeah, so that is based off the standards that are typical to 4.1107. They're baked into mixed income housing projects where it's not 60% of ground floor units, but it's 60% of street facing units where, so you have a certain amount of units that are on the ground floor where those units face the street, where they're on the ground floor, percentage of them, 60%, have to have access to the sidewalk either through usually that's done through a door or a gate of some kind that's connected to their unit individually. You'll see that a lot in some of the urban projects that come around where people can directly access the sidewalk, get a little activation, but also make it safer and easier for them to get out of their unit, get to the street, use the street, and get to nearby destinations and transit. So staff doesn't recommend eliminating that. We'll push for it in a lot of projects you'll see. So we do recommend maintaining it by approving the mixed use district, which it will apply just by nature of being a mixed income housing project.
Okay, and Camp Wisdom it's the busiest street on that side of the world. Park is busy too, but are they asking not to have these sidewalks on the major thoroughfare of Camp Wisdom, or is there something deeper there that?
Sidewalks are still going to be, so sidewalks themselves are going to be required.
I'm sorry,
this
not the
exemption would
sidewalks,
apply
but
to activation of sidewalk, and it's not targeted or anything necessarily. So we're still going to have the sidewalks at 6 foot unobstructed. I didn't note that. I did note that in here. So those are still going to be required. It's that activation from individual entries where 60% of the street level dwelling units adjacent to a street have to have that entry. So it's really about how the building interacts with the street more so than the sidewalk and the street.
And are they asking for these, and I'll ask the applicant, but are they asking for these exemptions because of the activity on Camp Wisdom?
I'll let them speak to it, but my planner professional opinion is we activate a street better, it's going to be a better street regardless of how the street is. Okay.
We also, open space. Is there any open space here? I don't see a lot of green space on the development plan. I think it was mentioned in the neighborhood meeting. We just wanted you to talk to it.
Yeah, they're required to have 10% open space, which is, again, part of those design standards. There are some quality standards baked into the 4.1107 standards as well. When I say quality standards, I'm talking about what can be built in there. Open space may contain primarily grass vegetation or open water, be used as groundwater recharge area, pedestrian amenities such as fountains, benches, or shade structures. So there is a minimum 10%. We don't require them to say exactly where that's going to be on a development plan to lock them in, but it is going to have to be provided.
And that 10%, it could include their detention pond, is what I just heard.
According to 4.1107, it can contain primarily grass vegetation or open water and may be used as groundwater recharge area. So that can include those areas and how this code is written.
Okay, thank you. Still trying to understand the full impact of PD versus the multifamily, but I will let any of my colleagues ask any questions if they have any.
Thank you, sir. Questions, Commissioner Hampton, followed by Commissioner Carpenter.
Thank you. Mr. Pepe, I guess one thing is similar to what Commissioner Herbert just asked. It appears that within the PD conditions that there are some internal regulations talking about how we're crossing drive aisles, where sidewalks would be required. None of that would be able to be codified in a base zoning district. Is that correct?
That's true, but those were added at staff's recommendation to mitigate the potential concerns of giving that exemption. So we said if you go down this PD route, you could get that 60% ground floor unit exemption. I think that the code that we have for the design standards for the ground level access is good and it should be maintained. But if they're going to ask for an exemption to that, staff recommended those conditions as a mitigation measure to that.
And that also includes the community amenities, and it appears that the landscaping standards may be more robust than base code as well. And I specifically noted the tree spacing distance appeared to be
That's the
reduced.
only, yeah, landscaping, that's the only change.
Okay, and that's, I was trying to go back and check I think they've got the required landscape points is 50. So 50 would be the base requirement for this type of project?
Yeah, when you put together your plan, you have to meet a certain number of points. And
Yeah,
that
I
is,
agree.
that is
I
slightly
just-
above average, yeah.
Okay, and then, so the amenities that are listed for the swimming pool, fitness facility, dog recreation center, those would be standard as well?
Those are built into this PD. They're not necessarily something staff looks to require for a multifamily project.
Okay, I'll pause there. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Carpenter?
So, Mr. Babby, your opinion is that the PD mostly serves to lessen design standards rather than enhancing them?
That's primarily what it originally was. I mean, some of the changes that were added were at staff's recommendation to mitigate them, but I don't think it advances us very far relative to the risk and the downsides that a plan development district give us, which are the inflexibility of design, the difficulty of the permitting process, and the long-term ramifications of a limited district.
Yes, normally, detention pond would not satisfy requirements for open space. Is that correct?
Depends how those open space regulations are written. How the ones that are built into the mixed income housing design standards are, it's groundwater recharge is a potential thing that can satisfy open space, but it has to meet all those other things where it has to be, primarily vegetation, grass, open space, with certain allowances for architectural things, small structures that are for active or passive recreation. But groundwater recharge is listed as one of the spaces that can satisfy that, but it's with the qualifiers.
So you're saying that is written into the standard 1107 requirements? Because it's not, at least during the time I've been on CPC, we've been told that detention ponds generally are not considered to be open space. They're required to be fenced and people aren't supposed to go on them. So it just seems like there's a deficit of open space here if that fairly large detention area could be used to satisfy the open space requirement.
Right, and so it can be met, but it has to meet some of those other requirements that are built in there. So that's one says it can be for active or passive recreation, playground activity, groundwater recharge, or landscaping. But then there's other qualifications there that make it sort of quality standards, if you will. The other thing is we don't know necessarily in a base district, we don't know if they're going to have to do a detention area, they do underground, other sorts of things like that. They're not locked into that, and they shouldn't typically be locked into that in a zoning process. They happen to depict one on their development plan, but under a base district, they're not necessarily tied to having a above ground water storage area.
Okay, one last sort of technical thing. On page 427, did you notice that under C3, where it says ground level dwelling units are not required to have direct connections via sidewalk to streets subject to compliance with the requirements of section 51P, 109C1, 109C1 has to do with amenities. That should read 109B4, I believe.
What page was that?
427, right above signs.
Oh, above signs.
Yeah, we're at number 3, where it refers to 109C1. 109C1, at least in the version that I'm looking at, doesn't have anything to do with the ground level dwelling units connecting to a sidewalk. It has to do with amenities. So I'm thinking it should be 109B4.
Oh, it's a reference because references just change. Presumably, I think that's a reference error. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, commissioners?
Just a couple, Chair.
Please.
Yes, so just in reference to the units, in a lot of this I've mentioned to you guys before, developments in my district, I kind of have to protect things in case these properties are sold or this changes. It's basically legacy, right? So I want to be sure we're going on around pat. But currently the MU1 provides for 65 units. The PD is asking for 35 units per acre. Is that accurate?
One moment, let me pull up the table. So mixed use zoning, mixed use 1 limits you to 25 units per acre only if you have multiple uses going on there. It's 15 if you're a single use property like this one is. If you include mixed income housing, which is something that we want to see, it allows them to increase their density up to 65 under that, just the single use. So it's tied to the mixed income housing. They can only increase their density if they're providing better, more attainable housing.
Okay, thank you. Also, they provided more enhanced landscaping. I think that's been mentioned. There's no way to hold them to that in the MU1. Is that correct?
Not necessarily, no.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Any other questions, commissioners? Okay. Let the record reflect that Vice Chair Rubin can now come back into the chamber. I think Commissioner Wheeler, we're going to circle back to case number 3. Is she in the back? Is she in the back?
Chair, would you like me to bring that up?
We're just taking a quick pause.
Sure, sure.
They blinked. Okay, Commissioners, while we're on hold there for the moment, we already talked about number 21. There were no questions, so Commissioner Kingston has a conflict for the record. Number 22, if we have any questions for the record, Commissioner Housewright and Commissioner Hampton have a conflict on number 22. So if there are any questions, we'll ask them to take a quick break. Any questions on 22? Okay, nothing there, Commissioners. Anything on number 46 on the signs, Commissioners? 46, 47, 48 are authorized hearing. I briefed. Let's have a brief.
I was trying to remember which one 48 was. Yeah.
Is he doing it?
What's happening?
Good morning. So we will do the briefing of the authorized hearing, number 48, and then we'll circle back to the case number 3.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ready? So this is the North Cliff Neighborhood Center authorized hearing, case number Z189-127. My name is Jalen Porche. I'm a senior planner with the authorized hearing team here. This request is a City Plan Commission authorized hearing to determine the proper zoning on a property zone sub-area 2 in Conservation District number 8, the North Cliff Conservation District, with consideration to be given to appropriate zoning for the area to include, but not limited to, use, development standards, and other appropriate regulations. This is located along both sides of Pierce Street, between the alley north of Gladstone Drive to the north and Catherine Street to the south. And the size is approximately 5.15 acres. Here we have a location map for you all to view. On the left, you see a view of the entire conservation district with the sub areas identified. We are sub area 2, and on the right, we have a more detailed view of the sub area with the streets identified. So some background information. On November 1st, 2018, the CPC, the City Plan Commission authorized a hearing to determine proper zoning for the North Cliff Neighborhood Center, formerly known as the Catherine Pierce Trolley Stop. The West Oak Cliff Area Plan was adopted by City Council on October 26, 2022, and this served as a guiding area plan for this authorized hearing. The WOCAP process helped evaluate the community's long-range vision for the North Cliff Neighborhood Center, and the authorized hearing aims to implement the recommendations of WOCAP. So some zoning history. As I mentioned before, this is Conservation District number 8. The North Cliff Conservation District was approved on August 28, 1996. The authorized hearing area is zoned sub-area 2 within that conservation district, which is intended to accommodate convenience, retail shopping, services, and professional offices, principally serving and compatible in scale and intensity of use with adjacent residential uses. This conservation district, or the sub-area, does not allow residential uses, retail, or restaurants. So some of the existing land uses within this conservation district, there are 15 single-family homes, 1 undeveloped property, 3 vacant retail buildings, and a church. And here we have some photos of those existing land uses. And this is a church. Vacant lot, single-family home. More single-family homes. And more single-family homes. So the West Oak Cliff Area Plan, WOCAP, recommends 4 primary recommendations for the zoning. One of which is to amend sub-area 2 to allow ADUs and live-work units in addition to existing uses, including single-family uses. Amend sub-area 2 to allow art galleries and studios, personal service offices, and restaurants in addition to existing uses. Maintain the height and setback requirements. Allow for reduced parking ratios, shared parking agreements with surrounding properties, and allowing on-street parking to count towards requirements for commercial structures to enable easier redevelopment of legacy commercial buildings. So these next few slides will show how staff's proposal aligns with the West Oak Cliff Area Plan recommendations. So for the first one, staff is proposing to add single-family and accessory uses, specifically accessory outdoor storage, day homes, home occupation, and private swimming pools. We're also proposing to add accessory dwelling units, ADUs, in accordance with the requirements for an accessory dwelling unit overlay in section 51A-4.10 subsection C of the Dallas Development Code, subject to the following: minimum floor area of 200 square feet, a maximum floor area, the greater of 700 square feet or 25% of the main building. It may not be sold separately from the main building. cannot be located in front of the main building, and cannot exceed the height of the main building, and it also would require one parking space. Additionally, to meet that first one, staff is also proposing to add live unit as an accessory use to any non-residential use allowed in subarea 2, subject to the requirements of 51A-4.217, subsection 8.1, summarized below. And that would include one accessory live unit per lot, may be attached or detached. It cannot exceed the floor area of the main use. One additional off-street parking space will be required, and it cannot be sold separately by meets and bounds. For the second one, staff is proposing to define art gallery and art or craft production studios, and to allow personal service and office uses, which are already allowed in sub-area 2. We're also proposing to add general merchandise or food store, 3,500 square feet or less, add restaurants without drive-in or drive-through service with residential adjacency reviews, limit non-residential uses to the parcel where they exist today, currently allowed through sub-area 2, and remove temporary concrete batch and motor vehicle fueling station uses, which this proposal removes. Staff is also proposing to maintain the existing height and setbacks as currently allowed in the Conservation District Sub-Area 2, and so we're not proposing to change anything. Currently, the height allows 30 feet, a front yard setback of 15 feet, and no rear and side yard setback requirements. And for the last one, staff is proposing no parking for existing non-residential structures or for new non-residential construction that does not exceed the floor area of the existing non-residential structure it is replacing. An addition of floor area requires parking in accordance with off-street parking and loading requirements for the use. The option to meet, staff is also proposing the option to meet parking requirements through a remote or shared parking agreement, which currently exists. If parking requirements are eliminated through the parking reform that's currently going on with the city, the parking agreements and the allowance of on-street parking to count towards parking requirements will not be necessary. And here is a conceptual drawing of the area from the West Oak Cliff Area Plan. All right, and that's it.
Thank you. Questions, commissioners? Commissioner Carpenter, please.
So to clarify, the current non-residential buildings would not be able to be replaced with residential construction?
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions on? Yes, please, Commissioner Franklin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the residential units, how large are the current lots?
The current lots are, I'm not sure the exact dimensions, but they're approximately 6,500 square feet. They kind of fall in line with what's allowed in R 7.5A, traditional lot size for that area.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Please, Commissioner Carpenter.
I do have one other question. The church that falls within this area, is it an active church? Or is it a site that is going to be likely available to be redeveloped?
I believe that church is active, yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Please, Commissioner Forsyth.
Are there any changes being proposed with this plan to the residential uses in the neighborhood other than the ADUs?
The main proposal is to allow the existing single-family homes that are within that boundary to exist by right, and so that's the primary change other than the ADUs.
Okay, but nothing in the plan will get rid of those residential units?
Correct.
Right. Okay.
Commissioner Chernow.
It's true that the current conditions now in the zoning don't allow single-family residential, and
Correct.
the change would then allow single-family residential for those existing single-family homes?
Correct.
Okay, just want to make that.
Any other questions, commissioners, on this item? Thank you very much, gentlemen. Commissioners, let's go back to case number 3.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Just one clarification as we're pulling that up on our last item on the agenda, item, hang on, 49, I believe. That's in Council District 14, not 7, as listed in the docket. Is that correct? Or I'm at, if staff would please confirm that.
Okay.
It's in the Junius Heights Historic District.
Thank you. Okay, let's go back to 3, and then we'll take our break.
Chair, would you like me to bring that presentation back up? I believe we got through it this morning.
Yes, we do need to brief it, please. Number 3.
Understood. Make sure I have my... Can everyone see that in chamber?
Yes, sir, we can.
Wonderful. Agenda item number 3, this is 234-111. That's a request for renewal of specific use permit 2269 for the sale of alcoholic beverages in conjunction with a convenience store. It's at the northeast corner of Forney Road and South Buckner Road. That's located in the LI, Light Industrial District, with the D1 liquor control overlay. That's what's requiring the SUP. Over here towards the eastern portion of the city, and see it's at that hard corner of South Buckner and 40. Surrounding zoning and land uses, LI to the east, north, and south. MC1, multiple commercial across South Buckner with an undeveloped property. There are offices and some miscellaneous retail in the area with a catty corner unit that is selling alcoholic beverages in conjunction, similar request. Taking a look at the site visit, looking across South Buckner towards the site. Taking a look once on the site towards the south, down South Buckner, and then a street view. Didn't catch a photo looking north, but wanted to provide that context. Taking a look at the site plan, no proposed changes from the previous renewal. With that, staff is recommending approval for a 5-year period with eligibility for automatic renewals, subject to additional 5-year periods. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Wheeler.
Do you know if the neighborhood associations within proximity were notified? I mean, did the applicant talk with any of those neighborhood associations, possibly Buckner Terrace?
I'm unaware, Commissioner, if they have.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask to hold that on a revised minute to the first meeting in January so that we can speak with the neighborhood association.
In February 6th?
February.
Okay. We will hold it to February 6th. We'll hold it under advisement. Whoops. Okay. Thank you very much.
Commissioner?
Yes, sir.
Chairman Shadid, can I ask just a question? Forgive me for my lack of knowledge. When they have approval for the 5-year extension with eligibility for automatic renewal, does that mean that after the 5 years for this SUP, that they would be on automatic renewal after that?
What's the request?
Could you clarify? I just, just education, forgive me.
It's just a general question about, when.
Automatic renewal.
Yes.
So, yes, it means that if they submit within the window of eligibility to submit for automatic renewals, it becomes an administrative review with staff. When we review an automatic renewal SUP, we review compliance with the site plan and with the conditions. We send letters to the property owners 200 feet within the area of request. If we receive 20% or more in opposition, or if we find non-compliance, we automatically schedule it for City Plan Commission, and it becomes a normal SUP case. the window for them to submit for the auto renewal is 90 to 120 days before expiration. It is not unusual, I won't put a number on it, for applicants to miss that window and it turns into a renewal.
Thank you for that explanation.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other items, Commissioners, before we take our break? Or we do have one quick announcement for Dr. Udall.
So thank you so much. Dear Commissioners, I wanted to let you know that it's the time of the year the registration for the National APA Conference is open. We do have funds set aside just for the City Plan Commission. I didn't do a math, but probably we may be able to send 3, 4, even more commissioners, but we want to see who's interested first. The National American Planning Association Conference this year is going to be in Denver, Tabitha knows, March 29th to April 1st. And if you want to go, just, I would say, email Liliana. She's going to centralize the names and numbers, and we'll let you know. Historically, we didn't have a lot of interest, but I would encourage you because, as I said, City Council set aside funds just for you.
Thank you very much for that. Commissioners, any other questions? Seeing none, it is 11:49 a.m. That concludes the briefing of the Dallas City Plan Commission. We'll see you at 12:30. Enjoy your lunch.